The following session was recorded live in St. Louis, Missouri for the 2001 Annual International Association of Square Dance Callers. This is tape number 11, Partners Session, Role of Partner.
I guess it's 3:30, so let's get started. My name is Kathy Davenport. I'm the chair of the Partners Committee. My husband, Larry. John and Freddie Kaltenthaler from Pennsylvania. And you don't see Elmer and Linda Claycomb from Arizona. Elmer will probably come in later when he gets away from his conflicts, since all three of the guys had conflicts. So scheduling wasn't perfect, but that's the way it goes. Good, John. You're supposed to be on the microphone, John.
That one should be on tape.
Oh. Okay. How many are here for the first time? CALLERLAB for the first time? Good. What we're going to do today is to do some talking about the role of the partner. Some of you that have been here a lot have heard this, and you may not want to hear it again. But we didn't do this session last year, and quite a few newer callers, partners, came up to me and said, gee, I came here to find out how to be a partner. So here we are for the newer partners, and certainly later in the session, some of you who have been partners for a longer time can offer any insights that you have. I'm going to turn the microphone over to Freddie and let her get started.
Thank you, Kathy. Partners are such a varied group. As you look around here, we come in all shapes, sizes, ages. I see some young people. Yay! Experience in dancing, experience in the outside world. We certainly have different personalities. So I can only share a few thoughts on my various type of partnerisms that I've been through. And sometimes I think partnerism is a disease. However, John and I separately started dancing many years ago, before 1950, before we even met. We did barn dancing, we did traditional style. He did some calling when he was a teenager. And then we got married and didn't dance for several years. When we were stationed in Albuquerque in 1958, there was modern Western square dance calling classes, and we took the classes, and he immediately started calling as well as dancing. Then he went to Germany, and I was very busy with our 4 little girls, so I participated, very locally, but he certainly wasn't calling that much. Our family went. In those days, we went to all the jamborees and festivals, the complete family. We were younger then, and all the dancers were younger. They were American servicemen. And the club that John started calling for in Heidelberg, or in Mannheim, just celebrated its 50th year of being a square dance club in the same school in Mannheim, Germany. So modern Western goes back a long way that way. He was about the 4th caller. We did take the children with us. The older children took care of the younger ones. We had babysitting available. It was great. And it was large, lots of things. As the children got a little older, they joined square dance classes. There was a club for the half pints in Heidelberg for 8 to 12-year-olds. The caller was an 18-year-old boy named Tex, and everybody, So I just managed to get them to the square dance class, and then the teenagers had their own club too. That seems to have gone by the wayside, and when we came home, it became just us doing the dancing. The girls were in high school and so on. I again learned that I couldn't go all the time. For a while I felt guilty about it. I thought as a partner I'm supposed to. But the children, I wanted those children, so I stayed home. When the girls got a little older, I went after they got to the stage of being able to babysit each other, I'd go with John on the weekends, perhaps. Not away for a weekend, but to a weekend dance. I didn't usually go to the weeknight dances. No, I also started teaching school, so I couldn't go all the time. I had to be cheerful in the morning to little children. So pretty soon we rearranged our schedules. So that stage of my being a partner was very much as it was convenient to me. It was John's job. He took the bookings. He did the calling, and I stayed home or did my own thing. Then came the girls left home. Actually, a few years ago, we retired. And I decided I still have my own life to live. I go when I want to. Oh, and even when I was feeling that I should go all the time. If I was sick or had a headache or feeling miserable, I didn't go to the dance, because to me, to go to the dance and sit there feeling under the weather was no favor to him. So I went to the dance when I really wanted to. And a lot of times it cheered me up. As Bev said a little while ago, when you go to the dance, dancing does make you feel better, and that's true. But there are times where, there's nothing more miserable than to sit there and be ignored by the dancers. John usually says very dutifully that he calls a better dance when I'm there. That's very sweet of him. I assume that he does call. Yeah, I had a feeling that you would. There were a couple of clubs that I went to once or twice, and I said, sorry, I'll never go again. That club was not friendly to me, or they weren't what I wanted. They either didn't want me to dance, or they took me for granted and said, we need somebody. Freddie, you fill in. And let me dance when I want to. And now I dance, usually as a man, because, anyhow, and I love it. Because I'm retired, and he's retired from everything but calling. Actually, retirement, I've decided, retired means tired over and over and over again. But so we have time to garden, bowl, ski, golf, and square dance. And then I have some other clubs that I've enjoyed joining. My favorite club meets on the first Monday of the month. We have an advance club on the first Monday, on every Monday, so I don't go on the first Monday. I go to my AAUW meeting.
Tell them what AAUW is.
American Association of University Women, and I'm involved in running the annual used book sale. So that takes a lot of time at this time. In fact, I should be home right now. But there again, I said, okay, I delegated authority and said, you do the work preparing for it. Our biggest problem now is that John is calling for many clubs on a semi-regular basis, and none are really close by. So every time it means driving in the car. And I've gotten to the point where I sleep on the way to the dance and try and stay awake on the way back. What I want to emphasize is that I don't feel guilty about any of the roles, my roles as a partner. And I want to emphasize to everybody, you find and fit your own pattern of being a partner. There is no one way of doing it. And it changes with the seasons, it changes with our age, and our families. And which reminds me that John has 4 dances in May, and I'm going to be babysitting my granddaughters. I only have 2, so by golly, when they need me. So therefore, I've put a different priority on it. So I'm speaking as a partner of a club caller, not a full-time or festival caller. That's a whole different role. And there again, I think the partners have to find their own patterns. I've had these wonderful choices, and I still enjoy it. We went to a dance and danced with each other the other night. That was a thrill. He can dance. So, anyhow, that's really what I have to say to reassure everybody.
Okay, I think we'll give the other side rebuttal time.
Thank you. I have no argument with any of the things which Freddie said.
That's good.
I wouldn't dare. There are some callers' partners who will not dance the part of the man. I think that's a choice which the caller's partner has to make. I know some that absolutely refuse to dance the part of the man. They said, that's not my role as the caller's wife. Okay. Other times, maybe that's the only way you get to dance, is to dance the part of the man. If you're comfortable with that, by all means do it. If you're not comfortable with that, by all means tell the clubs. They will probably set up a dance card for you, and I have no objection to that, if that's the request. But if there's a particular time that you don't want to dance, figure out a way to get out of it gracefully. Maybe that's the time that you have to be in the bathroom or whatever it happens to be. But whatever's going to be satisfactory to you. There is no set way and only way that you have to be a caller's partner. At various CALLERLAB conventions, we've had some partners who say, your job is to make your partner relax, do a good job calling, and help him in his calling, and so forth and so on, so forth, ad nauseum. One time we had a partner who got up and said, my partner used to be, he used to say I was his best critic until he got so damn good that he didn't think he wanted to hear from me. He told me to shut up. And we all kind of, this was on tape. And we said, there's something, I want to see if they're together next year. Obviously, you don't want to get involved with that. If you've got something that's troubling you at home, you've got problem with the children, maybe on the way to the dance is not the time to discuss that with your caller partner. Maybe there's a better time to do it. If your caller does something that you don't like, you can take Freddie's approach. Storm up there and say, what in the world are you doing? The dancers love it. This is, go get him, Freddie. We had a session a couple of years ago where I was on antibiotics twice a day, an hour and a half each session with IV tubes and so forth. And Freddie, we had canceled a number of dances. We were supposed to go on a cruise. Now, mind you, when you have a cruise, if you're on IVs with a catheter, you can't go swimming. You can't lie in the sun. You can't drink. Why go on a cruise? I mean, there are certain things don't make much sense. So we canceled a few dances, and some of the dancers said, we can hardly wait for the return of the John and Freddie show. Clearly, I call a better dance if Freddie is with me. But I recognize that she has her priorities, she has the things that she has to do, and I enjoy calling. And I agree to take the bookings. And if it's too far to drive, she says, you made the booking, don't blame me. She does not make my calendar, she does not set my fees, and that's a role that some of the partners do take. I don't say that that's the only way to do it, but the way Freddie and I worked it out, I make my bookings, I set the fees, and she goes when she wants to. I'm always happy to have her, but it's not necessary.
I also put don't book on some dates.
Under threat of marital discord.
Right. Is that it?
Yeah.
And I took my role from Freddie, and I don't do the booking either, because I never wanted to be blamed when he had to go to a dance and he didn't want to. Elmer said he'd try to get here, but we're going to at least let Linda have her say, and he'll just have to give a rebuttal later if he can.
I'm Linda Claycomb from Prescott Valley, Arizona. Very much backseat caller supporter. It's the only second time I've ever used a microphone. One We met in college, third week of school, at a square dance, learning how to square dance. Elmer had started in 4-H calling, old-fashioned style. So it was a whole new world for him when he went to college and found modern square dancing. We danced through college. I almost flunked out freshman year because I majored in square dancing. Had to go to summer school to make up for it. Pretty much from the start, he did everything, booking and mostly I drove because he had a tendency to fall asleep at the wheel, and I would help set up the equipment, but I stayed in the background. Extremely shy. It's very hard for me to meet people. This is really hard for me. But I found when I'd try to book, he would have another meeting. And so we just let him do it all. What I'll do is take the call. If he's open on that night that they're interested in, I'll note it all down, get the phone number, and let him call back and finalize. And we started in 61 dancing and stopped in about 1970 when our first child was born. About 10 years later, we asked the girls if they wanted to learn how to dance. They did. We started up again. About 2 years into that, he decided he could do a better job than the caller that was calling. So we started up again, and he's been calling ever since.
I'll go first? Okay. I'm Larry Davenport, and Kathy and I got into the activity 1982 through John and Freddie, actually. I always like to say that, Kathy got us there because friends at church said, would you like to go square dancing? And she really wanted to, but the activity got me hooked. So I picked up the microphone and started calling late 84, early 85, I guess. One of the things we haven't touched on is just we've talked about a lot of flexibility, and I certainly want to reemphasize that again. It's whatever role that you and your partner work out that's comfortable for the two of you. There are extremes that you go all the time, you never go, and somewhere in between. And I know some of you were in the last the Partners Committee meeting, and Kathy talked about that a little bit and probably talk again. So just to reiterate, we're not giving you a how-to up here. We're just sort of giving you some experiences that hopefully go across some gamut so you can get some idea of where it's working for you or not working, or where you might like to redirect that a little bit. I think what I'd like to talk about at the moment is Kathy's role really at the dances, because that certainly is really valuable to me, and I agree wholeheartedly with what John said, that I call a better dance if Kathy's there. I've got some clubs. I should say what kind of, where I call them. We're from San Francisco area in California. We used to be from the Poconos area of Pennsylvania. At that time, calling and her role as a partner were different when we were in the Poconos, and I was more of a regional caller, traveling some of the distances that Freddie talked about. And now I'm a local caller, too much of a local caller, Kathy would say, because I'm out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday for 4 clubs. But her role...
52 weeks a year.
Yeah, these clubs don't shut down in the summertime, so that's a 200-plus schedule with 4 clubs. So that's keeping it quite active. But Kathy plays a really strong, her particular style is to be really supportive at the dance. She's as much into how things are going from the stage as I am. She's had excellent training in how to sound the hall. She's had, I rely on her a lot for just the technical assistance that she provides in terms of how's the coverage, how are things going. But even more important, callers are sort of isolated on the stage, whether you think we are or not. And we don't always know what's going on the floor. And it's the partner, in this case Kathy, it really is, she's the one that spends more time talking with the crowd when I'm sort of lost in thought and not quite as, going around the hall like maybe I should sometimes. She's the one that's checking on how are things going, how are people feeling that night, little bits of information that she feeds back to me. And I guess we picked up the the Larry and Kathy show after the training we had from the John and Freddie show. But it's real, and Kathy can talk a little bit more about it. But, you know, if I'm getting a little carried away, she lets me know it from the floor. But in such a way that, you know, in some cases, she's probably just voicing things that other people might like to voice, but, you know, they don't feel like they can. And maybe other people didn't think about it, but the way she approaches it always lightens the mood for dancers who might be struggling a little bit because I'm getting a little overambitious or something. And it keeps the level of lightness and levity in the hall much higher when she's there. I have to work a whole lot harder when she's not there. And on better behavior. And it's quite fascinating. People will tell her things that they don't want to come up and tell me. And I wouldn't know what's on some people's minds if she wasn't talking to people or they weren't coming up to her and talking with her. So it's just absolutely valuable. She thinks that some of the clubs are less worried about where she is than some of the other clubs. But all 4 of those nights that I walk into, if I'm not there, I'm almost told to go back and get her. You know, it's not. The clubs that we call for truly recognize. You know, what she brings to the table as a person, but also what she brings to the table just in terms of making the evening more fun. So it truly, for us, it's that kind of a partnership where the 2 of us together create a lot more fun for the people at the hall that come to that dance than just if I'm there alone. So I think at that point I'll pause and let Kathy say whether I'm right or wrong.
Thanks. Freddie touched on the one thing, and Larry too. We can only give you ideas. How I am as a partner, how Freddie is as a partner, how Linda is as a partner, comes from the people that we see around us. And maybe some of you don't have maybe you're in a more rural area where you don't have other callers, partners around to see. Or maybe you don't want to be what they are. Take what you like of what they do and what fits with you. And your personality. Now, Freddie says she'll stomp up to the stage, or John said that Freddie will stomp up to the stage. Well, I don't do that. I kind of use my hand and cut my throat when he's getting too long. Recently, one of the dancers wrote an ode to Larry Davenport, and obviously she couldn't put that in the song, so she put in that I holler stop. Well, I've never hollered stop, but it fit the song. It was cute, and she was afraid I'd be upset about it, which I wasn't. But she, as everyone said, how do you spell that, or how do you make that sound? Well, there is no sound. It's just a cut across your throat. And I do have to be aware of the personalities of the clubs, because there is one club where there's a few women who think Larry walks on water and he's perfect. They're wrong, but I kind of have to keep some of the things that I might say on a different night, or the faces I make when he does something that doesn't feel very good. I have to be a little more careful about that in that particular club, because I have been told I have nothing to say about my husband that's bad because he's perfect. Literally, I've been told that.
They're a strange group. They're a strange group. What can I tell you?
So it's important that you understand that we can give you all of what we do, and anyone else here that talks today can say what they do and how it is in their area, but you have to take what fits with your personality and how it works. In the last session we talked a little bit. Jerry Junk's wife Sharon does not go to dances. She really does not participate. Now that he's in Arizona, she's a little more involved, but for the most part she's not participating. She is still his partner, and if you ask Jerry, he would tell you that. She's very supportive of his calling, but not in the way that I am or Freddie or Linda is. It's a whole different support. And then there are the callers, partners that go every single time and really feel that that's their role, and that's great. And probably most of us fall in the middle, and that's what we were talking about. And you really have to decide where your life is. If you have small children, obviously your life's at home. There's very little that you can do to change that. When we had teenagers, Larry went by himself most of the time because we were in a semi-rural area where they couldn't get anywhere unless I took them. Not to mention I didn't really want them alone necessarily. And since Elmer's gotten here, we better put him on because he probably has to go back to his conflicting meeting. So, oh, he's here. Okay. Well, we're still going to put him on here.
What am I supposed to talk about? I'm Elmer Claycomb, and several years ago when I was in college, I needed a partner for the dance after the next dance. Not the next dance, because I already had a partner for that. So I came bouncing up to this young lady in our college club, and I said something like, I have a dance for the next dance, a partner for the next dance, but will you dance with me the dance after the next dance? And she says, then I disappeared, and she was wondering if I'd ever show up again. Unfortunately, I did show up again. And did you even know that I was a caller at that time? Okay, because I can remember we were still in classes. So she got started with somebody who already fancied himself a square dance caller, although I had been in the traditional square dancing program before getting to college and finding out there was this whole world of modern square dancing. And her original role, very often, which hasn't changed a lot, is to keep me awake when I'm driving, because I was going to school, and yeah. And then we also had to go all over the country to every caller we wanted to dance to on weekends. So with that, I've got to find out what's going on, so you guys go ahead.
Your stories tallied.
Yes, you both agreed with the same story, so that's good. You've been practicing? He remembered. That's good, because a lot of guys don't remember. I would like to throw it open to questions and comments. However, Larry wrote me a little note about one-nighters. He doesn't do one-nighters too much anymore, but I don't normally go to them. Depends on the group, but for the most part, I'm out of place. If he does a father-daughter Girl Scout group, I don't fit in. I'm not a father and I'm not a daughter in terms of that night. And I've also gone to some where I was treated rather rudely as the hired help. I told Larry if he wanted to book that group again, he was more than welcome, but I wasn't going. He did book the group again, and when he got there, they all said, oh, where's your lovely wife? So I don't usually go. I don't go. I guess I've gone a couple of church groups and that type of thing because they were couples, and so I fit more into the group. But I never really went to his one-night stands. I know that there are partners that go, and they're very, very involved with the one-night stand. And I'm sure some of you do lines and that type of thing. So that's part of your role, and that's great. And I'm sure Larry would love it if I went, but it's not my role, so I don't.
Another thing which some partners do, not requirement, some may choose to teach the rounds. Years ago, callers did both the squares and the rounds, and the participation was very, very high. Today, in most places, I think they have a separate round dance cure. Some of the callers' partners will teach lines, some will still do rounds. When Larry and Kathy went through color school, we made the statement, the hardest part of being a caller is saying no. Kathy reminds me that now that Larry's calling 4 nights a week, 52 weeks a year. But it does happen. In the area in the Poconos where my closest dance that I call for on a regular basis is 70 miles one way.
And that's our every Monday.
And that's our every week class. The other day, last Sunday, I was doing a gig for the Connecticut Callers Association. It was a church where we had communion, so church ran a little bit late. And I happened to be singing the benediction that day, so I had to leave church, drive to Connecticut, and try to be there in less than 2 hours, which is almost an impossibility, and then drive an additional 45 minutes to where the Callers Association meeting was being held, and then I did my performance. Freddie did not go with me. Why? Because she said, I would have been doing nothing but nagging you about speeding.
I know. When Randy Page I called him and he said he got here 10 minutes ago, or his wife said he got here 10 minutes ago, he had been speeding. So, I really didn't have anything else to say. A possibility.
Yeah, when we open for questions, we'll want everybody to come up on the microphone. We do not have a wireless mic. You really can do it. I promise. If I can get on the microphone and Linda can get on the microphone, you can come up and get on the microphone too. I did have something I'd like to bring up and let the people up here see what they would recommend, and then everybody else can give any of their opinions on anything we've said. How do you handle a situation where the partner has been going, partners change jobs, a lot of job stress, and can no longer go at all, or very rarely, if that? The partner changed jobs, can't go with the caller, and the caller is very unhappy about that. John, you always have an opinion.
Yeah. In my judgment, what I would probably say, if the club expressed concern about it, would be to say, Freddie has a new job, and she finds that until she's more comfortable with her job, she is unable to be with me on the nights that I'm at that particular club. If Freddie has during the time that she was teaching, she would be correcting papers at night so she could be ready for school the next day. No way in the world she could go with me, and I never had any clubs get upset about that. If it was a Saturday night or maybe a Friday night club, she tried to go with me. If she wasn't able to be there, they said, "Where's Freddie tonight?" And I get that a lot today now that we're both retired. "Where's Freddie tonight?" I said, "Well, she's with AAUW tonight. It's a board meeting, and she has to be there. She's in charge of the book fair for the final time." Yeah, right.
The question is, the caller is unhappy.
Well, the caller may be unhappy, but I think that the caller needs to change his attitude, because it is a caller-partner relationship, and family comes first.
What it boils down to is communication. It's not a one-sided thing, and we have to keep talking to them. Even if he is the caller, I can still talk to him. You betcha.
Well, let's see if I say it right. Linda worked up until a few years ago, and just would get to the point she could not make herself go, and they weren't paying for her to come. They were paying for me to come. And she would come when she could, and the people always would ask, "Where's Linda?" And I said, "Well, she does work and just can't make it all the time." Now she's retired and gets to a lot more of the dances. Yeah, doesn't have any excuses, and I think the people really enjoy it. But in several cases, she had been coming fairly regularly, and then work just got to the point where she says, "I just can't make myself get out night after night." Now, does that fit at all with kind of how you felt about it?
One problem that I have is sinus headaches, and you can't dance when you get a sinus headache. And as a caller's partner, I fill in a lot as a man, and I will tell Elmer, "I have a sinus headache tonight. I can't dance. Please back me up on this when they ask me to dance." And a lot of times I feel I'd rather not go than go and have to tell them I can't dance.
Okay. I think what Freddie said is the biggest thing, communication. Maybe if there's another caller in the area that the caller really is close to, looks up to, or whatever, maybe that other caller could talk to that caller that's having a problem with this. I know that if I didn't go at all, Larry would have a real problem with it. But I think that, we'd talk about it, and he'd have to decide whether he's going to go by himself or if he's going to give it up. Talking is, it's easy to say, and it's not so easy to do, to discuss it and work it out. And obviously, I would say you need to talk about it when there's no fear of interruption, so that you can express everything that you want to express.
I'm not sure I can really add anything to that particular topic. I mean, communication. For me, that's hard to accept, but I have to when those situations come up, just simply because I know that I think of this as an activity we do together, even though I'm calling. And if I were put in the position of where I had to call on my own all the time because we needed to go separate ways, I'd probably give up calling first before I'd accept that kind of a thing. But you got to figure out how you're going to deal with it. Fortunately for me, we've never had to deal with that particular question, but it does come back to communication and finding the proper roles that fit each of you.
At the earlier meeting, somebody brought up the partner can help, help teach the Ten Commandments, or I'd hate to say enforce them, but there can be the time that dancers come up and say so-and-so has BO or has been drinking or something, and they're saying, could you speak to them? Now, that means that we have suddenly been given a job, a real job, other than being this supportive, adoring person who dances. I like to think of myself as a dancer first, but that, or teaching etiquette, or some of those other things, I don't know if that's something that your clubs expect you to do. I've had it once or twice.
Okay.
Yeah, not knowing what you've already covered, what I'm going to say, maybe, see if I tell the same story as the last one. There's a number of things that Linda does that I think are extremely important. Number one is she is as good a dancer as is on the floor. And I mean this with no reservation whatsoever. That's the reason I went to ask her for the dance that night. We want to show our dancers what square dancing really can be. And it's not just getting out and doing a bunch of intricate maneuvers. It's dancing. We have the advantage of having both danced on several very good exhibition teams. We have maintained part of that. We've let a lot of it drop away because we don't want to, we don't want to be too flashy, we don't want to overpower people. But the ability to dance perfectly in time, have your body in the right place, get out and dance with our dancers. And that is go to dances when other callers are in the area. Go to the festivals. Dance with the class members. And I think one of our biggest thrills is getting into a square that's just hanging on by their eye teeth and helping them get through a dance, and they don't know why it happened. Well, why it happened is we get in the right place. We don't push them. We don't tell them what to do. We just dance properly. So that's one area. Another is helping me with the pieces of dancing, again, that are dancing. I have to have her to teach people how to swing. That's the only piece of dancing we have left. Everything else, you just mechanically go about your business. But swinging is something that really involves body position, weight distribution, footwork, etc. And I simply cannot illustrate that with anyone but her and a few of the older dancers who danced traditional years ago really know how to swing. Pardon me, I wish we really swung the number of times that we're supposed to instead of cutting it short, like is just what happens in modern square dancing. She also tells me when I haven't explained things properly, it didn't make good sense. So there's a whole number of things that, as we're driving home, she may be ticking off this list, not all of which things do I like, but they're accurate. Somebody didn't catch what you were doing. Did you know tonight you were dragging a little bit? You were leaving extra beats in when you didn't need to, etc. And she's got very proficient at doing it to where I'm only mad for a short period of time.
something else that I've done with one of our clubs where we got some very young dancers in. And they were coming from work wearing their work clothes or their jeans or whatever, and the club was not happy about that. So I stopped wearing square dance clothes for a while, and I came with my business suit on or my jeans or my slacks. It's not what I normally wear. But I wanted the club to see that it was okay. I mean, if we can get young people into a square dance club, I'm not chasing them out for square dance clothes, I'll tell you right now. They're all wearing square dance clothes 2 years later, but we let them get there on their own. And the club has learned that it really doesn't matter what they wear. They've also learned that it's okay for me to dance the man's part and any of the other women that do. They're very supportive of their widows. But when Larry was hired, they told me I couldn't dance the man's part unless it meant a whole square sat down. Now, some of the women are just thrilled if I dance with them. I have a softer hand. I don't twirl them hard. They just love to dance with me. They will seek me out before they'll find one of the men to dance with because I'm so much more comfortable to dance with. Oh, thanks, John. So, do we have questions, comments? Yes, Larry's saying that I'm also in the right place, like Elmer was saying about Linda. There's quite a few dancers that like to dance with me and maybe don't want to dance with somebody else. We have one dancer in our one club that's afraid to dance with someone else because she's had her hand pulled. Whereas if I'm in the square, I'm leading her to where she needs to be. She's definitely having some mental lapses when she's square dancing. And if she misses a move, she wants to think about it for the next 10 moves. Well, you can't do that, as we all know. But usually I can get her in the right place without hurting her hands, and so she's happy that way. And it helps. It really does.
When you gentlemen mentioned that your partner does not always, Bev Sutter from Dubuque, Iowa, your partner does not always go. Linda mentioned that she has sinus headaches. Have you ever, maybe not even not knowingly, made her feel bad that she didn't go with you? And how would you handle it as in this case, the female partner, when he says, yeah, but you have to go, or he makes you feel guilty that you didn't?
Usually I just say, that's too bad.
She doesn't care. No, I know I hurt her feelings at times, and I pressed it when I shouldn't have. And I think we've learned that there's times when she just can't or doesn't want to. And by dang, if they want to pay her for coming, then she's got to come. But, I'm the one that they're paying per se to show up, and they get a free additional help that's real beneficial when she can come.
One club solved the problem. They elected me their treasurer.
One of our clubs just tried to elect Kathy treasurer. She turned him down. I know that I've been less than sensitive at times, and Kathy would agree. I understand when she can't go, when she needs to stay home, when she has other things. Mentally, I understand that. Emotionally, I don't always understand it. And I usually, she puts me in my place over it, which is fine. But we just work it out that way.
Well, a lot of times we put guilt on ourselves. And I think my message to any partners gathering is don't let anybody put guilt on you, and don't put it on your own shoulders.
I got to share one thing with you, that Larry said that one time he insists that Kathy goes with him because he's running late and they have to travel in a high-occupancy vehicle lane. And she has to be in the car to make that work. Now, you all are sitting there, you're chuckling at that. Beautiful downtown Pocono Pines doesn't have a high vehicle occupancy lane, let me assure you. And where you're in an area where that becomes a consideration, that's a different set of circumstances. But if Freddie says, I'm not going to go tonight, I say, okay, Because I just have learned that it's easier to stay married if you agree with what your wife wants to do. We just celebrated our 49th anniversary last Thursday, so...
Just learned it.
And Freddie's comment was he just learned it. So, other questions, comments? Please come up and... I know you all have experiences that you can share with us, or questions. But certainly if you have no questions, you have experiences that can be shared with the newer partners.
You're all numb, right?
Come on, it's late enough in the day. You're awake. But you do need to come up. I apologize. We don't have a cordless mic, but...
Well, this is kind of a statement and a question. I was a stay-at-home mom and wife, and I guess I got a little carried away with my duties because I guess my husband and I feel like we're almost equally involved. And I don't go 100% of the time, but I'd say 90% of the time.
This ends the front side of your cassette.
I would do it if I felt like doing it. Larry and I have done flyers for one of the clubs. It's a very small club, and they just didn't have the wherewithal to do their own flyers, and Larry is very good with that. So together we did it. I would never have attempted it myself. I don't have the knowledge of the computer to do that. But I think, if that's something you want to do, go for it.
Let me tell you that Freddie and I, the only problem that she has when she says quite emphatically, I'm not your secretary. You make the call. You make the flyer. You make the decision. I'm not your secretary. I have to be reminded of that periodically.
Yes. But as for flyers, Betty, and taking out the ad in the magazine and so on for our Caller Run Club, yes, I do that. I say I don't do his booking or anything else, but I take care of the publicity for it and the flyers to go out to the Dancers Association so that they know our schedule about it. But that's about the only place I've really done that sort of thing. That's because I've got my own computer.
I agree with Kathy that when the occasion arises where it's worthwhile for us to pitch in and do that, and really in this particular club, where a small club don't have the resources and we share it, and all the clubs I call for are dancer-run clubs, but by and large they all treat us very much as part of the club, as opposed to the hired hand, and so we're as much trying to help them out when it makes sense as we can, acknowledging that we also don't want to all of a sudden have all this sort of reverse delegated to us to, Larry and Kathy are going to do this every time. It's got to be shared, and we want to leverage the resources of the club to help themselves because we think that's awfully important as well, but we certainly are more than willing to play a part of it when it makes sense.
I did do a flyer one time when I was in a computer class, and it was part of a assignment. But Elmer is a lot better on the computer than I am and a lot faster. So when we do have to do things like that, I wait until he can do it.
And then she sends me into the office with the original of the flyer. And then she comes in and runs the copies because I'll never get it done during the day.
And actually, one of our clubs had no diplomas this last year, and we had run out and didn't get them in the mail in time, so I did sit down at the computer because Larry had no time. And I learned to use a program that I had never used before, and it was an adventure, to be sure, but I did it because the club needed it at the time. Normally Larry would have done it, but he just, at work, was so involved that he couldn't do it, so I sat down and did it. Sometimes you just do what you've got to do, but you also have to say no when you can't do it or don't want to.
Oh, in that particular case, and by the way, now that I don't think the club wants any other diploma than the one she designed, they're so pleased with it.
excuse me. But she did really made that, simplified that, though. If you ever find yourself in those situations, I just thought I'd like to mention out, you can go down to the local stationery, Staples, or whatever, and buy some great backgrounds that you can print these things on, so you don't have to get terribly creative with the graphics or this or that or anything else. You can just basically stay with the text and then print it on something that really looks good, and that's what she did, and made it quite simple that way. Her only problem was we couldn't figure out how to save it and get it back in that particular program.
I saved it. It just said I needed some kind of security code to open it, so I have no idea what was wrong with that little number. And then when they needed another one, I had to do it all over again. So that was interesting. Do we have other comments, experiences, questions? Oh, you need to come up, I'm afraid. I know you hurt your knee, but... I can reach you. Okay.
Good afternoon. Actually, I don't do very much with my husband. He calls once a week on a Thursday night. I do go with him and really enjoy it. It isn't a caller-run club. It's a club that's self-governing. But the thing that we've really enjoyed, we're preparing to escort, this will be our 6th cruise in the last probably 8 years. And my husband has given me the opportunity to book all the people that sign up to go with us and handle all the transactions with the, we go through Inspiration Cruise and tours in California. Dick Weibel, he's really fantastic. He and his wife Becky. I've really enjoyed that part because I've traveled a lot. You probably can tell from my accent. I'm originally from England and been traveling back and forth over 40 years now, so each time is a different experience. But this is really been an enjoyable thing. We discuss everything and we don't make decisions without, communicating and talking to each other. And then my husband does the calling when we're on board the ship. He doesn't do all of the calling. Usually there's about 5 or 6 other callers and round dance leader and line dance. My husband also teaches line dancing. He has a singles club. I do enjoy the line dancing. I don't have the opportunity to dance very much because I personally feel if there are other people, other women there, and they've paid to come in, that they should dance, and I shouldn't be up there dancing. If there's someone comes up and asks me and said, would you dance? I said, well, there's the other women sitting there, would you ask them? Now, if there isn't anyone else sitting, then I will get up and dance. And I do dance the man's part. I can, and I won't dance plus, though, with them. I can dance plus, but I find that sometimes the 3 men in the square feel intimidated by having 5 women, in the square. They want to treat me as another woman rather than a man. But we've been square dancing now for about 36 years. And it's been a marvelous activity for us. We've met so many wonderful people and it's given us the opportunity, and we've had so many adventures. We've had a lot of challenges, but we always talk to each other, and as Kathy said, people will tell me things at the dance that they would never say to my husband, and I'm able to tell him, did you know so-and-so, and tell him. And sometimes they say, well, your husband really called a wonderful dance. I said, well, thank you. Why don't you tell him? That would really make him feel very nice, So sometimes they do go up and tell him if he does. I'm his biggest critic, though, if he doesn't call. I will tell him, and I think he respects me for it. I couldn't really honestly say that if I felt something was wrong, I'd have to tell him the truth. And that's, we've been married 48 years this year, so I think we've got something going for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have as much trouble getting the microphone here as in any other meeting. One of the things that Linda does that I think the partners can really need to do is checking sound in the hall reliably. you cannot trust your dancers to tell you sound. Only thing they'll do is tell you, turn it up, can't hear, turn it up. And it may very well be the thing you need to do is turn it down, change voice, treble, bass, and she's real good at this. The only problem that I have, and this is just she starts out to try to go around and check, will people catch her and talk to her, and pretty soon I look back and she's deep in contemplation or conversation, whatever that word is. Yeah. And I'm trying to get, well, if she's not paying any attention, I guess she can hear all right, is what I've learned. But that is, I think, is really important. And pay attention to, I mean, that's an ability you have to work on some, to really pay attention and think about what the dancers that are out there dancing. It's not just whether you can hear out on the floor, but can they really hear when they're dancing. And you probably know what your spouse's voice sounds best at, and particularly if you're on a different sound system, not his regular one, that's the one they may need more feedback than anything else. So that's another one of her jobs.
Larry's just telling me to talk about signals. I have hand signals for him from the floor to tell him whether he needs more treble, more bass, more voice, less voice, more music, less music. The only time I get in trouble with that is if I need to have him change something in the middle of the dance, and I do have to kind of jump up and down or run up to the stage and say, I'm here, I'm here. Okay, so what's the problem, He gets mad if I don't tell him how the sound is, but sometimes I'm trying to and he's not paying attention. Gee, doesn't that sound familiar? So I always hear from the dancers about the sound because they know that I'm checking the sound. The other side of that, though, is we did a session on sounding the hall a couple of years ago, and I had several partners come up to me and say, my husband would never listen to me. He would just die. So there again, it's the same thing as with everything else we've said. You have to decide what will work. If the caller in your relationship doesn't want to hear from you on that angle, it's probably something you should leave it alone. There's other things that are much more important. The dancers are going to get to him eventually and say, I can't hear you. I mean, someday they're just going to go up and say to the caller, I can't hear. My answer would be, if they come and tell you, just say, you're going to have to tell him or her. I don't have, in my case, I do have control of it. But if you don't or can't, it's really probably not the most important thing between the two of you. It's obviously one of the most important things to the dance, but between you, it's probably not that important to ruin a relationship over sound. Anybody else have something they want to bring up? Gee, this is the quietest group we've ever had.
Yeah, count on me. Well, they've discussed how they choose to stay home or they choose to do this. I choose to go with Dave all the time. We raised 4 children. I went when I was pregnant or nursing or whatever. I'd take the kids with me. They all love to see the kids. Now they love to see the grandson when he can come. But as far as the things that I choose to do in this working relationship we have with each other, we seem to get along very well. We've been married 30 years. I cooked the first 30. He's going to cook the next 30. I'm not cooking anymore. No. Of course, Thursday night is Carlos O'Kelly's, and Tuesday night is Pete's, so he's not cooking either. But I choose to do the booking. We tried to each do it, and we were double booking. We did that twice. We found it before it got to be an issue, but he said, either you do it or I do it. And I said, well, I'm home when the phone rings. I'll do it. We decided how much to charge. We decided what nights we aren't going to call. We decided in the summertime, we're not calling at all. We will call during the week, but not on the weekends because we're going in the camper and we're going to forget about square dancing. We're not going to have caller burnout or partner burnout. When the kids had their swimming in high school, in 12 consecutive years of swimming, first the one boy and then the next boy and then the two girls. In those 12 years, I made decisions on whether or not I would go to a dance or I could get there later if it was a home dance or whatever. But I only missed 5 home or away swim meets for my kids. I was there first. And people understood that. Then I'd come to the dance and said, they did real good, this one's going to state or whatever. But they understood that. But I'd show up, mostly to brag, that our kids are doing so well. We do 2 square dance weekends a year, one in the spring, one in the fall. I'm the producer. I take in the money, I book the rooms, I make sure what's on the menu. I am the contact with the hotel. I get the extra little snacks and foods that we have. Of course, after 19 years, it's a little easier. I just make the phone calls. The pop guy didn't show up. I called him up, and I said, hi, this is Bev Sutter. He goes, oh, my God. I said, yes. So in 20 minutes, they had the pop down there. So I'm familiar with these people, and after a routine of doing it over and over, I do the skits in the after party on Saturday night. These are the roles I've chosen to do. Dave is rather shy, and I don't see him doing some of the things that I would do, but this is how we balance each other. When I get real gung-ho to do something, he goes, sit down, calm down, let's think about it, let's not jump into that. And then usually between the two of us, we talk about it. So we do talk. We get in the car, he drives, I sleep. I figure that's a good 50-50 thing. And then on the way home, he drives, I sleep. But if he needs to know where to go, I got to stay awake. I'm the navigator. We got to a dance, and I said, well, I know it's at Denise's studio. That's what the contract says. He said, yeah, but they tore that down. I said, no, they didn't. Somebody told you. We got there, the only thing left was the door. Well, it was at Denise's studio. They'd moved. We didn't know where. So I got the contract out, got in the trunk. I said, well, we'll make some phone calls. Made a phone call. The president had been injured. Happened to be home. Couldn't think of anybody else in the town to call. He said, oh, it's at Denise's studio. So we've been there. There's a door left. Everything else is gone. No, they got a new one. So those are my when we get to a situation, I'm the one that panics and gets into fixing it. He forgot his medicine coming down here today. I've made 4 phone calls to Walmart, and I will make the 4th one going over there trying to pick it up eventually because they didn't have it ready this morning. So that's my role. I take care of the panic situations. Of course, I think maybe I make them panic situations, but I'm trying to prove my worth. I'm not indispensable. I know that, but he doesn't. So this is how we choose to do it. This is how we talk about it. This is what we do. Now, because she's shy, she doesn't want to do this and that, and he accepts it, and that's good. And Freddie, she's a strong enough woman that he says go, and she goes, I don't think so, and he deals with it. And that, when you've been married 48 years and you've been married as long as these people all put together, it's a lot of years together, you learn signals, not just how to turn down the mic or turn up the mic. You learn the other signals of looking at each other in a certain way, and you go, oh, shouldn't have said that or done that. Yeah. And you what? Yeah, everything on the mic. But anyway, they've said how they choose not to do certain things. This is what I chose to do to be so much involved.
And that key word there is choice.
While Bev was talking there, it made me think of one other thing that we really haven't touched upon is leisure time. And you mentioned a little bit time for yourself. And particularly if your calling schedule is really a lot, you've got to work that out as well and make sure you do get some time away and how you work that out. The other thing is that when we're all on the microphone calling away, that means our partners are not dancing with us. And when we first got into this activity, we got into it to dance together. And I remember years ago, I don't remember if it was John said it or Freddie said it, that someday you're going to find yourself not dancing too much. You're going to be too busy calling. You're going to make that transition. And it really does happen. And if you're not calling, you want to be doing something else if you're calling too much. And so that finding time to dance together is something you have to search for too. Maybe it's round dancing. In my case, between tips, I'm sort of thinking about other things and not really, ready to run out on the floor and do round dancing and then run back up on the stage. And so for us, that's not a whole lot of together time for dancing either. So right now, if there's a key weekend that we like to go to, callers that we like to dance to, we'll do that, or a week away. But you've got to find time to still dance together as well, because that's what you first got into the activity for.
And some of you newer partners and your caller will probably think that'll never happen, but it does.
When Bev was talking about she does the booking, the Poconos are a resort area, and Sunday night, all the people in the resort area go back to New York, New Jersey, whatever it happens to be. Traffic is absolutely horrendous. There was a club that danced in Brooklyn on Sunday night. And they said, would you call for our club? And I tried to explain to them as tactfully as I could, they didn't have enough money to get me out of the Poconos on Sunday night. They said, well, we don't dance on Sunday in the summer, we dance on Wednesdays. I said, if you can convince my wife that I should take the dance, I'll call your dance. 3 of them got down on their knees in front of Freddie, begged her to let me call the dance for them on Wednesday night. She agreed. I was hooked. The only problem was that they forgot to give me directions as to how to get to this hall. Now, Brooklyn is not laid out logically, and therefore the streets that you would think of, this is Avenue T, you would think the next one would be U, and the next one would be V, and the next one would be W. Not in Brooklyn. So I said, well, how am I going to get there? We had been driving around about a half hour, and about this time I'm getting kind of panicky because I'm not at the dance. There was a UPS truck. I said, they will know. I found out what a nanosecond was. A nanosecond is the time it takes the guy behind you to blow the horn after it turns green. The light turns green. And the truck driver says, go down 2 lights and turn right. We come to the next light, it's red, and he finished the instructions to where the church was. We got there on time. Just. And my dinner that night was as many grapes as I could eat.
Yes, we hadn't even found a place to eat, not even a McDonald's. I know Brooklyn has them someplace. And then it took us an hour and a half to get out of Brooklyn back to Manhattan to find our way home. Oh, we stopped at a gas station after they told us to take the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, which doesn't mean anything to anybody who wasn't there, but we couldn't find it. So we stopped at a gas station, and the man said, well, you've missed 2, but now go up, and it's on the left. It goes down in the hole on the left. If he misses it, you drive, lady.
So it's not always good for people to tell the dancers to go talk to your partner. I always tell them, Larry does his own booking. That I stay out of.
Going to stay out of.
And Freddie's staying out of it too, for sure. Linda, you too, right. When he used to come home and have to drive an hour or an hour and a half to get to a dance after working all day, I just decided at that point for sure that I never wanted to be the reason he had to come home half dead and have to get back in that car and drive all the way over there, call a dance, and get home at 12:30 or 1 o'clock in the morning. I figured he booked it, he can live with it. If I book it, I'm going to have to live with it, and I don't want to. Anybody else?
Just a quick comment, because my husband has called for 31 years, but 2 years ago he married a woman who had never square danced. So when you have a new caller's partner, I love the word choice. I'm so glad I came to hear it. Be gentle with them. Be very gentle. I started hearing, oh, well, as a caller's wife, you do this, and as a caller's wife, you do that, and you must be here and there. And I thought, wait a minute, I've been a career woman. My first husband was a pharmacist. Nobody told me how to be a pharmacist's wife. What is this? And it scares the dickens out of you. So be gentle with that person, because it's a new world, a world I love, and I love being a caller's partner. But at first, it really is frightening. So if you come across one of those, work with them. Don't make them afraid of this job. Let them be themselves. There's nothing else they can be.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Another thing I was afraid of at the beginning was the booking. When Larry started booking dances a year, 2 years, 3 years out, I couldn't imagine making plans that far in the future. Scared the heck out of me. Really did. I thought, how am I supposed to know what we're doing on Saturday, 2003? I haven't a clue what I'm doing next week, much less 2003. So that's another thing that scared me.
Let me put your mind at ease about one other thing. And I love the comment of, I was a new wife and he had been calling all these years. It's not all work. There's a lot of fun things, and I think we've tried to show you some of those that we've experienced in our time of calling and queuing and what have you. Enjoy the fun moments as well, because there are an awful lot of them. And you look back at the things, it's like anybody who was ever in the service. You don't remember the drudgery, you remember the good times. And I think it's the same thing happens in square dancing, that you can be very, very positive about it, but the communication that you and your partner have is critical to your success and survival. But there are so many wonderful things that happen in the activity of square dancing that enjoy them. And there are so many marvelous times that you have with your children, with the activity, with your clubs. Just enjoy it when you can, and don't ever panic. Talk to your partner, because the choice is what is important. What you have agreed, there is no set pattern which must be employed. And for anybody to sit there and say, you've got to do this, tell them to take a hike. It's not the truth. Whatever you and your partner work out.
Am I hung up? No, I don't think so. Okay. One of the things that we have with our clubs, well, at least most of the clubs, they very much appreciate us as a couple. They're couples clubs, and they appreciate that I'm there. Several of them have had callers in the past whose wife didn't come along to the dance most of the time, or at all, depending on which club you're talking about. So when Larry was hired to come in and call for the clubs, they made it very clear that they were very, very pleased that they had a caller whose partner was participating in the activity. He wants me to tell you about one of our interviews, but I'm going to make him tell you.
This particular club, and it's one of the ones Kathy's talking about. By the way, the other callers that may have preceded me that didn't come with their partners, for very good reasons. It wasn't that they should have been there again. It's not like we've been saying, but I guess what got me into telling Kathy to say something about this is we talk about why should I be going with him to the dance? Nobody expects him to come with me to the pharmacy or something else. I mean, that's a very true statement, but I think the reason it's true is because square dancing is such a couple's activity, and that's why we get into this thing about partners as opposed to, one person does the job and the other person does something else. But this particular club really let us know that they were, how pleased they were that we were going to be there as a couple, but I'm not sure if it's really relevant, but it just reminded me, it was sort of funny. They actually came out and interviewed us. Came before they hired us on. They actually came out to the house to tell us about the club and learn a little bit more about us, and and see that we were outstanding citizens, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the club that told me I couldn't dance the man's part. I have since rearranged their thinking quite a bit.
But that also brings up something I think is worthwhile, that also when you're dealing with clubs, whether you're the caller or the partner, we haven't used the word patience yet, but you need to be patient with clubs. In this particular example that Kathy's talking about, where they let it be known that they were a couples club, and that's just the way it had always been, and Kathy was they're happy if Kathy danced, but I guess Kathy mentioned that she dances quite a bit and fills in as the guy if that's necessary, and that's when they let it be known that they were this couples club, and that just wasn't the way they did things. That's one place where I had to calm Kathy down a little bit afterward, because she was a little upset with them at that attitude. And I said, I told her, I said, don't worry about it. You know that when we get in with that club and start working with that club, and they see who we are and what we do and how we approach it, they're going to come around. And so I guess that reminded me that as you're doing whatever you do between your caller and your partner, don't always feel that there have to be real quick, fast changes in something that you may not like, or a policy that you don't like, or whether it's the clothing or something else. But also remember, as you go about this business of being caller and partner couples working at this thing, also show patience with clubs, because you can over time show them a new way, and most of the time they'll get it.
That's true. We've changed that club quite a bit since we got there. They never liked... We had one couple of ladies who came in to dance, and there was a big... That was just after we started, and we didn't realize there was such a big deal about it. And they had their hoedown not too long after that. And we were in the kitchen, and we sat down with these two ladies. And those two ladies fell in love with us. We didn't know what we were doing. We just sat down because there were two chairs there, and we were going to chat with them, and that was it. They just were thrilled with us because by doing that, even though we didn't know it, we let the club know that it was okay. There was still a few things went on after that.
But just that it wasn't pre-planned. We didn't know we were doing that. But by the fact that we accepted them and we were that leadership role for the club, that really pretty much overnight changed the attitude of the club towards those two people.
Yeah, so you do set examples for the clubs, and you do need to be aware of that when you're out to the dances. What you do does affect the club in some way, whether it's good or bad or happy or whatever. You do affect the club. And like I said, with the one club, I started wearing jeans or slacks or my business suit after coming from work so that they would ease up on the class and leave them be. They all wear square dance clothes. It took a couple of years, maybe even 3 for some of them, but they wear square dance clothes. Sometimes they don't because they're coming from work, and I sure don't want to lose young people. I mean, that's really what we need. Obviously, I'm not throwing anybody else back, but, we need to encourage young people, and if wearing a square dance dress is going to make them not come, I figured, why bother? We need these people. So that changed their attitude. I didn't have to say anything. I just changed what I wore to the dances. And it did work.
She mentioned young people. John did a beginner's dance for a Connecticut club the other day, and there were 3 young children. The oldest was 11 and 9 and 7. The little girls were dressed in their mother's square dance skirts. The 7-year-old, her bigger sister said, "You look dreadful." She had no hips, and you looked like a dork. And she said, "I don't care, I like it," swishing around. She was having a wonderful time. She looked as if she were a little girl dressing up. But she was a lovely dancer. One of the worst dancers, and she's very experienced. She's been dancing, and we've seen her in many clubs, and she's a dreadful dancer. And she was so busy pushing this 7-year-old, it was going to wreck that. So I got the 7-year-old aside and said, "You just keep on going where you belong, and don't worry about that other lady or anybody else." But, sometimes these big people are so sure that the children can't dance or can't do it, and the children are reacting so much faster than the rest of us. It's a shame, and that can discourage it. That's a whole new thing. But anyhow, my job when John was calling was to reassure this little pipsqueak who looked like a dork. Oh, she looked so pleased with herself. and I was proud of the mother for letting the child come looking like that. Wasn't that great that she just let her tie up a braid around her waist and keep that skirt up? It was great.
Okay, I think we need to finish up. We have about 10 more minutes. Do we have any other comments, questions? Well, okay, thank you all for coming. And we have dealing with people tomorrow, and we have the informals, which are not recorded, so that we can say just about anything we want without hurting anybody's feelings, because it's only going to be whoever's in that room that hears you. Thank you.